Hello everyone, welcome back to the second channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at another retro deck. This one's going to be the first deck on the channel that I do not actually have complete as of the time of recording, but we'll get there eventually. Today's deck we're going to be looking at is the Abomasnow deck for 2008 Cities. 2008 Cities is a unique format consisting of the sets of Diamond and Pearl to Stormfront. It's a format that not many people actually play. Out of the retro formats that I have built, it is definitely one of the least popular, being that it is both a mid-season format and also an older format. It is technically a block format consisting of all of the Diamond and Pearl sets, but typically when people play Diamond and Pearl as a block, they typically include Platinum due to the Pokemon SP really kind of changing the metagame around them. You also get, of course, stuff like Cursegar, and you get Flygon and all sorts of different things that Year 2 Platinum adds to kind of shake things up in the metagame. Diamond and Pearl Cities is a very different format than that, with only 6 sets in the card. No, we have 7 sets. We have, of course, Diamond and Pearl, Mysterious Treasures, Secret Wonders, Great Encounters, Majestic Dawn, Legends Awakened, and Stormfront in the card pool. So very, very small card pool compared to both 2009 DPAR and, of course, 2010. Remember, there was no rotation after 2009 Worlds, so 2010 has a massive card pool consisting of, what, like 13 sets or something like that. This format is like half of that. And due to that, there are some restrictions. Now, that said, there are a lot of really cool cards in this format that are added by Legends Awakened and Stormfront, being these very, very key, pivotal, giant power creep sets. However, there is, of course, limited options in terms of your access to trainer cards. So in this format, the only hand disruption, if you play it in your deck, is going to be Team Galactic's Wager. Most decks just choose not to play hand disruption. Because there's no looker, there's no judge, things like that. In terms of, supporters and decks in general, there's typically maybe 5 or so supporter cards that you'll see most commonly in decks, and after that, the competition really falls off. There's not as many options, and you'll see that when we start to especially get to the trainer cards, because we tend to play some deck filler to make our deck just a little bit more consistent, because there isn't that strong of cards to throw in there in the back half. For the Pokemon, though, there is a lot of great Pokemon. We're going to let this Abomasnow line really shine in this deck. So, 3 copies of Snover here. This is the better Snover to play. There is another Snover that is legal, that is Grass type, but its attacks suck. This one has 2 really good attacks, potentially protecting it for a turn, either with immunity, or usually it's just better to go for the Powder Snow. Maybe you can chance a Sleep on the opponent, which could potentially be pretty good, stop them from retreating or attacking. So you do want to play the Snover. 50 HP is actually very, very bad in this format, because the best deck historically in this format was the Kingdra deck, which is capable of doing, on turn 1 going second, very easily capable of doing 60 damage for 1 energy. There are some donks in this format. It is a format with some problems, and that is one of them. So try not to get donked. 3 copies of Abomasnow. Abomasnow is a great card that really falls off going into 2009 and 2010. Now, it was still seeing play at 2009 World. Someone played Flygon Abomasnow to top 32. That was kind of a... Flygon Abomasnow was a kind of an anti-SP strategy that popped up, specifically because people really hadn't figured out how good Flygon was in itself. So, in this case, stuff like Flygon with Abomasnow is a functional way to counter SP decks without playing, Machamp in your deck. You have its lower to the ground stage 1. But once Flygon decks themselves, and you have to play Flygon mirrors now, this card loses a lot of value in later formats because of Nidoqueen, which heals 10 damage in between turns from a player's entire board. So in 2009-2010, this card is not nearly as good. Now in 2010, it did get 2 top 32s at Worlds. There was the Amphisnow deck, which is a lock deck. Not a very good lock deck, but it is a lock deck nonetheless. And there was the Abomasnow line played in Regigigas, just as a counter to Mewtwo level X. Since it's an evolution, it goes through the Mewtwo, which walls basics. Kind of cool. In this format, though, this is like the one format that exists where you get to really see Abomasnow shine. And this is such a cool card. It is one of my favorite cards, in fact, from this era. Abomasnow has 100 HP and a sick Pokebody, Snowveil, which protects your bench, or any damage done to your Pokemon in general, by 20 as long as Abomasnow is active. Now this is really big in this format because, again, the best attacker is Kingdra. I will put that on the board right now, and actually let me just grab a copy of Kingdra for show. It is this guy, not Kingdra Prime, this early Kingdra. And one of the things that Kingdra does really well is it does 60 damage and 20 damage to one of your benched Pokemon. For a single energy, it is really, really powerful in this early Omnipearl metagame. Abomasnow is great at countering that because Abomasnow reduces the damage done to itself by 20. So Kingdra's only doing 40 to the active, and then Kingdra's bench damage is entirely shut down. Because as long as Abomasnow's active, that damage is reduced by 20. Now, if the Kingdra plays like a Warp Point to get around Abomasnow, and you don't have another Abomasnow to throw into the active spot, then it can be tough. They can start to stack some damage. But the goal of this deck is that Abomasnow is a really big, tanky spread attacker. And you usually don't see that in spread attackers. Usually spread attackers, you know, we think of like Flying Flip Tapu Koko, which gets one-shot by Zoroark and Golisopod and all them. Or we think Raichu, which gets one-shot, you know, Raichu Delta, which gets one-shot by like basically everything in RSPK. You know, guys like that, typically not as bulky. Abomasnow effectively has 120 HP, and you can make that count turn 2 shots into 3 shots. We'll talk about that later. The main attack of the deck is Snowplay, which does 20 to the active and 20 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon that are not water or grass. Now that is a weird, why it does not damage water or grass Pokemon, because Abomasnow itself is water, ice, technically, and grass, as it's like 2 TCG typings. So it damages everything that does not share those 2 types. What is tough about that is Kingdra does not take the spread damage. But this attack is still pretty good at beating Kingdra. Not because you still hit the active Kingdra for 20, but instead of worrying about dealing damage to the benched Kingdra, what you're using this attack for a lot of times is you're trying to steal prizes off their board to eventually slow them down. So you're trying to kill Claydols, and more importantly, you're trying to kill Cresselia LV.X, which is a common fixture of this format. We will talk about that. Snowplay, incredible spread attack, capable of doing a lot, but do keep in mind that water and grass restriction. It comes up in the Glaceon matchup, and it comes up in the Kingdra matchup, as well as the Scizor Cherrim matchup, a deck that's entirely made of basically grass types. So it is something that is a bit annoying. Below 0 is also a pretty good attack. For 3 energy, you do 60, and if Abomasnow evolved that turn, you can paralyze your opponent. I haven't used the paralysis effect that much in this format specifically because it is both 3 energy, because you want multiple Abomasnow on the board to take advantage of Snowveil in case of a Warp Point, and then also because of Unown G being in this format. Unown G being a card that prevents all effects of attacks done to the Pokemon it's attached to, makes it very difficult to get these very situational effects off. This would already be a somewhat difficult effect to pull off in 2010, but with double colorless energy and the less need for having 2 Abomasnows on the board, you can sometimes pull it off. This format, you're much less likely to get that off, but 60 damage is just a solid chunk. Abomasnow can enter the war of attrition and just start chunking the opponent for 60. But 3 energy is a lot, do keep that in mind. Sometimes it's better to just click Snowplay and start attaching to another Abomasnow on the bench for when your Abomasnow goes down. Our secondary attacker, just like Rye Eggs, we got 2 spread guys in the deck. Just make sure all of our bases are covered. We have 3 copies of Bronzor. This is the better Bronzor to play. In 2008, there's some argument to play the Metal Bronzor, specifically because it resists Psychic, so you resist Gardevoir. Gardevoir is in this format, but is not nearly as strong as in 2008, so we're not really worried about Gardevoir killing Bronzor. This Bronzor is the best because of that Hypnosis attack, putting the opponent to sleep, potentially very good. Confuse Ray is also usable in this deck. Flip a coin if heads Confusion. Usually you're going to want to go for Hypnosis. Fire Resistance is also a cool little thing that Bronzor has. Next up we have 3 copies of Bronzong. This is the Bronzong from Majestic Dawn. One of my other favorite cards of, frankly, all time. This is such a cool card. And it's another card that really falls off for 2009 and 2010 Worlds. This card's very good in 2008 Worlds, but once Nidoqueen comes out and Garchomp C-Level-X comes out, spread strategies just become much less powerful in those later, more power-crept metagames. It becomes a lot harder to use Bronzong. Bronzong, though, in this format is very good. There is not great healing in this format, and Bronzong takes full advantage of it. Bronzong has that Cursed Alloy Pokebody, which says that if it is your active Pokemon between turns, put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon with Poke Powers. Primarily, this is very good at taking down Claydolls over the course of a game, as well as just applying damage to things like Uxies, Azelfs, anything that hits the board that your opponent starts to have to watch out for because you can eventually steal prizes on them, especially with Abomasnow. If you damage an Azelf for 10 with Bronzong, even just one active ping of Bronzong, retreat, and start attacking with Abomasnow, you're setting it up to be KO'd 1 turn sooner, which is pretty cool. Going along with that spread damage, we have Pain Amplifier, a free attack that says put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon that already has damage counters on it. Incredible free attack that works perfectly with Snowplay. Obviously, Snowplay is going to hit the whole board, theoretically, for 20 damage. And then once that damage is on there, Bronzong can capitalize on it. Bronzong is also just a solid lead, being that it doesn't need energy. If you whiff energy in your opening turn or two, you can safely just have Bronzong start chipping away at things like Claydol, just so you're still making some progress on the opponent's board, even though you aren't, even though you don't have energy. Do keep in mind that Pain Amplifier is an effective attack, so again, Unown G going to be a relevant way that the opponent will try and prevent that damage from stacking up, because you cannot Pain Amplifier a Pokemon with Unown G, but you can still get that Cursed Alloy damage in against Claydol and Cresselia LV.X and Uxie, Azelf, all of those. Speaking of Cresselia LV.X, this deck plays a 2-2 line. This is where my list differs quite a bit from Mike Fouchet, who played this deck back in 2008. I got the original idea to build this deck because of him, but my list differs. Now, I do play 2 different Cresselias in this prototype list. However, this guy is wrong. I ordered a Cresselia and they sent me the wrong one, so I have an extra copy of that one. You want to play the 80 HP one. It's less donkable, and it has a 1 energy attack that just damage to the opponent. Main thing, though, is that 80 HP. Now, Future Sight is a good attack. It's a much better attack, I'd say, in fact, for getting yourself out of a brick. But 70 HP is more donkable. I would just avoid that. Just stick with 80 HP on the Cresselias, unless you have a real reason to play 70. It does have a second attack, which is actually kind of cool. Lunar Dance does 50, and you may discard 2 energy attached to Cresselia. If you do, heal all damage to one of your bench Pokemon. I've seen this attack commonly used in 2008, and in this deck you can use it too. I've seen it used to heal Abomasnow before, because Abomasnow is so tanky and it kind of, protects itself. We're going to also be healing it. We'll talk about that in just a second. You can keep Abomasnow just out of range and then use Lunar Dance to heal it, freshen up your Abomasnow, that way you don't have to power up another attacker. Does mean attaching energy to Cresselia. Why would we want to attach energy to Cresselia? Well, Cresselia LV.X is kind of cracked. Mike Fouchet did not play Cresselia LV.X in his list. I think Cresselia LV.X is arguably the best card in the entire format in terms of Pokemon. I guess Claydol would be that, but Cresselia probably second place. Cresselia has that Full Moon Dance Poke Power that allows you to move 1 damage counter from one Pokemon to another, anywhere on the board. Unlike Munkidori, which needs a Dark Energy and is conditional on moving damage counters from your own board to your opponent, this is just move damage wherever you want. 1 damage counter is, of course, less than Munkidori's Adrenaline Brain, but it is a much more powerful effect, just inherently. For the power level of this format, and the fact that there's not much Pokepower lock. The only Pokepower lock that is present in the format is, again, Gardevoir, which is not that strong of a deck in this specific format, and Glaceon lock, which is actually a tier 1 deck. You do have to watch out for that. It will turn your Cresselias off. What Cresselia does is it really helps with Abomasnow in making, like I said, that tanking count. So let's just say a Kingdra hits you for 40 and does 0 damage to your bench. You can then start healing your Abomasnow with Cresselia, turning that into a 3 or 4 shot. Then you can even switch out your Abomasnow, go to another one, and that Abomasnow is pretty safe on the bench. That's the only thing that you got to worry about is your opponent, playing Cresselia of their own. And this does kind of happen just like the Monkey Dory Wars of 2025. This format has a lot of Cresselia Wars, where players are just frequently throwing damage counters back and forth at each other with Cresselias. But this deck is great at killing the opponent's Cresselia as well because of Abomasnow and Bronzong both hitting the bench. You are sometimes able to win that Cresselia War pretty often, I'd say, in fact, against other decks, as long as you can prevent your Cresselia from being sniped by like a Gengar, which is a relevant thing to keep in mind. And finally, Cresselia's attack. Why do we want to attach energy to Cresselia? Well, that Moonskip attack does 40 damage, and if you take a knockout, you get to take an extra prize card. I just realized this is a little off camera. We'll just go like that. There we go. Moonskip says if you take a knockout with that attack, you get to take an extra prize card. This deck is great at setting those knockouts up with your spread damage, and with Cresselia's Full Moon Dance as well. It is very common to see the game end because of a Moonskip knockout. Now, it's not the attack you're going to go for early in the game, it's an attack that you're going to go late in the game. You know, lead the game with your Abomasnows, then maybe you transition to using Bronzong, and then maybe, you know, go to Cresselia. Once that damage is set up on the opponent's board, typically you're gonna, you know, use Cresselia, especially for that Full Moon Dance. It gives you extra damage. It also allows you to adjust knockouts, so if your board doesn't have any damage on it, I'm going to be healing my opponents like Azelf, because I don't really care about killing their Azelf on their bench, right? It'll die sometime soon. Whereas it's more important to kill, let's just say, the Claydol or their main attacker or such. I think Cresselia has been absolutely fantastic in this deck. I would not run any less than 2-2. It is... I used to run 1-1 in this deck, and I tested it, and I was like, wow, Cresselia is the best card in the deck. I want 2-2. Speaking of 2-2, we have 2-2 Claydol. Claydol is in most decks in this format for that Cosmic Power, letting you draw cards while you set up. If you've played any Diamond and Pearl format, you know Claydol. Every Diamond and Pearl format past 2007 Worlds is going to be running this guy. Very, very cool Pokemon. We love him. Do keep in mind that Claydol has a Poke Power, so Bronzong Wars will involve a lot of Claydol hate. Bronzong's out to get Claydol, so watch out for that. But that also means that your Bronzong's out to get Claydol, and you have 2/6 spread attackers you can use to chase down your opponent. 2 copies of Unown G. Unown G we've talked about quite a bit already. Prevents all effective attacks done to the Pokemon it's attached to. This serves 2 main purposes in this deck. One of them is to protect your own Pokemon from Bronzong and Gengar. Gengar's Shadow Room is another effective attack that snipes Pokemon with Poke Powers for a shit ton of damage. You got to watch out for that. So you're going to, let's just say if you have a Cresselia in play against Gengar, you're going to be equipping Unown G to your Cresselia to protect it. And then your goal is to kill their Cresselia and gain the advantage in the war. The other thing that it does is that TM Devo is a pretty common card in this format. There's a lot of spread decks, and also decks need a way to deal with Gengar's Feigning Spell. There's not a lot of ways to deal with Feigning Spell in this format, especially without Expert Belt to have Uxie take the knockout while putting itself back in the deck, which would be a way you'd deal with it in like 2010. There's no Crobat G to poke it for 10 damage as an ability to get around it. So a lot of decks play Devolutor to get around Gengar as well as take advantage of spread. We also play Devolutor. But one of the things that comes up with Devolutor is if your Abomasnow has, let's just say, 50 damage on it, your opponent can devolve it and get around your damage reduction Pokebody and just take the knockout on Snover. That is a pretty common thing that happens in this format, is devolve KOs, so you're typically going to want 2 Unown G in your deck, and at one point my MagnaZone deck had 3 Unown G. It is a really important card in this format, and there's really no other tools competing. Again, that smaller card pool is really evident because the most common tool in 2010 the common tools are Energy Gain and Expert Belt. Those are basically the best 2 by a mile. This format has neither of those, so Unown G is everywhere. 1 copy of Azelf lets us check our prizes for any Pokemon, and then we get to rearrange our prizes. So let's just say I prize my Uxie, and here are my 6 prize cards. So they're going to go like that, and then oh, that's 5. Well, I can't count. There's 6 prize cards. I use my Azelf, and I check my prizes, and I'm like, I really want my... Oh, that is 7. Okay, well, whatever. I'm going to use Time Walk. I'm going to get my Uxie, put it to my hand, and then I'm going to put another card from my hand in my prize cards, but then I also get to rearrange my prize cards when I set them back down. So that means you get knowledge of where your prize cards are for the rest of the game. Very important. Also, Azelf has the lockup attack, which is very good in this deck specifically. It's something that comes up. Because we have Cresselia, lockup does 20 damage and stops the opponent from retreating. This is an effect that's actually pretty easy to, of course, put on because we have Psychic Energy in the deck. And your opponent's not going to be expecting it. Their Unown G is typically going to be on like their Claydolls to prevent Bronzong from, swinging some extra damage into them. So you can get lockup pretty easily, and then you can do a permanent Azelf lock where you move that 20 damage to your opponent's bench. If they have no way to get out, like let's just say they promote a Chatot in the active spot and they don't have any warp points or switch, you can permanently trap it with Azelf and then just move that damage off with Cresselia until their whole board is dead. Cool little combo there that comes up every once in a while. One copy of Uxie. Uxie has that setup. Draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. One of the best Poke Powers, arguably the best Poke Power of all time. Of course, we're going to play 1. You could play 2 if you want, but we have Claydol for consistency. You could theoretically drop Claydol from the deck and just play multiple copies of Uxie, but I think having Claydol for that sustained draw throughout a game is very good. And 1 copy of Unown Q. This gives the Pokemon's attached to 1 less retreat, so you just attach it from your bench to one of your Pokemon, get 1 less retreat. Having 30 HP is very, very donkable. If you do start Unown G, you're probably saying GG, your opponent's going to drop a Uxie and do 20 damage, 30 with weakness, and knock it out. So be careful about that. We don't want to run more than 1, because that increases our chance of getting donked, but it is a very, very good piece in this deck. Usually you're going to use it on your Cresselia. That's usually a good play, just put on Cresselia Retreat. One thing I really want in this deck that I don't have is 1 copy of Chatot from Majestic Dawn. So if you're looking to make any changes to the deck, Chatot from Majestic Dawn would be very good. Has a nice Mimic attack to get you a new hand. This deck can sometimes choke in the opening turn, but really once you get the Claydol, and frankly, once you get any search out, you're just fine. But just that, having that would be maybe something to consider. 4 copies of Roseanne's Research. This is the best supporter card in the format. Every deck plays 4 Roseanne without a question. Find 2 in any combination of basic Pokemon and basic energy from your deck. That can get us Uxie for some draw. It can get us Cresselia to set up our board. It can get us energy to attach to our Snovers. It can get us Baltoy. And then next turn, we can use Bebe's Search to go get Claydol. And that's why every deck is playing Roseanne and Bebe's, because we want to get that Claydol online. That's hell of a drug. We love that Claydol. Bebe puts any card from your hand on top of your deck and searches your deck for a Pokemon. We can get any Pokemon on the deck. Very, very good. Also reduces our hand size, so if we go find Claydol with that Bebe, now we have less cards in hand, and Cosmic Power is going to draw us even more. Bebe is great. We love Bebe's Search. These 2 supporter cards are 4 of in literally every single deck I've built for this format. I have not found any deck that does not want 4 Roseanne, 4 Bebe. Again, lack of better options in this format is a big thing, but those 2 are just the best supporter cards in the format. As for our auxiliary supporter, I'm playing 2 copies of Cynthia's Feelings. You could play 3 of this card. I just don't find it to be as strong. Once you're going, you're not really worried about the supporter card. It's for those situations where you're not going. Cynthia says shuffle draw 4, and if one of your Pokemon is knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw 4 cards. Very good. If you get donked, let's just say turn 1, a Kingdra takes a knockout of one of your Pokemon. It's very good to have this ready to go. That way you draw a bunch of cards, get some things going as quick as possible. Also good just against any fast deck, you want this. And if your Bronzong goes down, let's just say you lead a Bronzong because you don't have the energy for a Snover Abomasnow combo. Once the Bronzong goes down, use a Cynthia, start going. You can play 3 copies of this. The other supporter cards in the format don't really work in this deck. Felicity's is not good. In this deck, we're not worried about discarding cards. And then the other one is Wager, which you could potentially play in this deck. Team Galactic's Wager is a okay hand disruption card, but you have to win a rock, paper, scissors to make it work. And if you lose that and you don't have a Claydol on your board, that's a bad card to open, right? You don't want to take that risk in your opening hand. Moving on to the item cards, technically trainers in this format. Remember, there's no such thing as items until 2011. We have 4 copies of Broken Decks. Some people call it Pokédex. I call it Broken Decks because it always gets you what you want. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and you keep one of them and put the others to the bottom. It's the same effect as Dracloak's Recon Directive as a trainer card. decks in this format pretty often play this card. I've found it even in more of my decks than I was expecting because there's just not the better item cards to play. So, for example, in 2010, this would be a slot where I'd put a Pokemon Communication because Pokemon Communication is an out to Uxie, which is more consistency, or an out to Claydol, which is more consistency, or an out to our good Pokemon. There is no Pokemon Communication here. We're going to be playing some Pokédex. Now there is Pokédrawer Plus. I'll put that on the screen now. Pokédrawer Plus is another consistency option that says draw one, or if you have two in your hand, you can play both of them at once. Search your deck for any two cards and put them into your hand. I think Pokédex is better, especially in Stage 1 decks. If you're playing Pokédrawer, it's probably because you're playing a turbo deck like Kingdra. Kingdra really benefits from that, being able to find rare candy combos, especially. So Kingdra actually plays both Pokédex and Pokédrawer. I would always play Pokédex though, especially in a Stage 1 deck over your drawers. Drawer is not that good in this format, in my opinion. Very situational. Well, I mean, it's very good. It's in Kingdra, but not nearly as splashable. 2 copies of Night Maintenance, shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy back into the deck. One thing that's unique about this format is that decks are usually running 2 copies of Night Maintenance compared to 2009 and 2010. Sometimes in 09 you see 2 copies of Night Maintenance, not really in 010 anymore, or in 2010. And part of the reason why you don't see that ever in 2010 really is because 2010 games are played with less prize cards. Not literally, but because decks have Expert Belt and Spirit Tomb to help them set up, especially. Decks are giving up a prize card usually with their Spirit Tomb, and with Expert Belt, they're going to set up maybe 4 attackers, right? And then once those 4 attackers go down, the game's probably over. Maybe 5 attackers, you get 1 Night Maintenance and you put your last line back to force the opponent through 1 last Expert Belt. In this format, there is no Expert Belt, so none of our Pokemon give up 2 prize cards. We could take 2 prize cards with Cresselia. None of our Pokemon, though, give up 2 prize cards, so games can be long and drawn out and bulky. Your Abomasnows are very big, and games can go on pretty long. So good to have 2 of these. That way you're playing the long game out. You do not want to play your 1 and, maybe 1 gets milled or something like that, and then it's a really bad time. 1 copy of Luxury Ball. Search the deck for a Pokemon that is not a level X and put it into your hand. This is a 1 of in every single deck in this format. I think 2 in Kingdra, just because Kingdra can discard the extras. In this deck, it is, of course, very good. We can search everything except for Cresselia. There is no Pokécom, like I said, so you only get Luxury Ball as your item card consistency for Pokemon, but that is what we got. I mean, there is other item card consistencies, but you're playing Great Ball or Pokeball or Dusk Ball. Like these are a poor man's options. We're gonna play our 1 Luxury Ball, and then we'll fill our deck with Pokédex for consistency. 1 copy of Warp Point forces each player to switch like Escape Rope of more modern times. This deck doesn't really need switching that often for the opponent's side because our spread attacks are usually hitting the whole board. But I found it nice to have 1 Warp Point just to be able to force that switch. I used to play 2, I cut it down to 1. I think 1 Warp Point is still very good. If you have something you really want to put in the slot, though, this is probably the freest slot to cut from the deck. Next up we have our technical tool cards. They're not actually tool cards, they're technical machines, but we have 2 copies of TM Devo. Devo in this era is not the Devo like it is during Gen 3 or Gen 9, because currently TM Devolution just rotated from Standard. Technical Machine TS2 Devoluter is different than Devolution. For one, this is an infinite use Technical Machine, so you attach to one of your Pokemon, it does not fall off at the end of the turn like ATM Rock and like Technical Machine Devolution do. This stays on the board, which is pretty good. We want to keep that on our board so we can use it multiple times. And the attack Devoluter says choose one of your opponent's evolved Pokemon, excluding Pokemon level X, and remove the highest stage off that Pokemon. Not being able to evolve Pokemon level X is annoying, but still, this is a way for like our Bronzong, let's just say, for 0 energy, by the way, pressure the opponent, slow them down, potentially take knockouts if they've been damaged, and also waste rare candy, which is pretty good. In the 2010 tournament where I played this exact list, what you call it, Abomasnow list, I ran into a Kingdra deck, and they had a turn 1 candy, and I devolved them. And then they had a turn 2 candy, and I devolved them again. And then they had a turn 3 candy, and I devolved them again. And my Abomasnow finally went down, but I was able to stall enough time with that, where in the late game they ran out of rare candy. Well, first of all, I stalled enough time where I was still in the game, but also they were out of rare candies at the end of the game, and they weren't able to establish another Kingdra, so I was able to clean up the game at the very end of it. TM Devo's pretty good. You could go down to 1 copy if you'd like in this deck, but it is pretty good in this deck. You use it a fair bit, and you want to be able to find it when you want it. 2 copies of Moonlight Stadium. This is the staple card in Bronzong decks because Bronzong loves being able to pivot in and out of the active spot so that you can promote it after a knockout and take advantage of its ability and then retreat it into something like an Abomasnow. This also helps us get our Cresselia into play. Level X's have to be in the active spot in order to level up, so you really like Moonlight Stadium in this deck. We don't really care about giving our opponents Moonlight Stadium. Again, we're targeting their whole board with Abomasnow's damage, so it's not as important as like what we're attacking so much as that just we're attacking. We are a speed spread strategy. Next up are the energy cards. This is going to be a bit hard to fit on the board because, as you can tell, if I put them over here you can't see them, so we're just going to throw them under the warp point. We have 4 copies of Call Energy, staple card from this time. Call Energy says that you if it is attached to your active Pokemon, is not when you attach it, is if you have it attached, you can choose to end your turn at any point, and then you search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon and bench them. This is very good in this deck. We have a lot of colorless energy in Abomasnow's attack costs, as well as like 1 colorless in Cresselia and 2 in Bronzong. So this deck does not mind taking the hit to its energy consistency, playing the Call Energy. Very good. We want 4 of these. If we open it and we go first, we're very happy. If we don't open it, it's still an energy attachment in this deck, and it's not dead weight, such as with the card like Call Energy in the Scissor deck, which needs only Grass Energy to attack. That deck does not want to play Call Energy because it doesn't want the dead weight. Then we have our, well, we have some more special energy, but we have our basic counts. Just gotta make sure these fit on the board. 4 copies of Psychic. These are pretty warped, as you can tell. These are nice acid foil energies. We want to play more Psychics in this deck than Water. Despite Abomasnow being our main attacker, Cresselia needs 2 Psychic to attack, and Bronzong and Azelf also take a Psychic. We need that extra Psychic more than we need the extra Water. Believe me when I say most of the time you're using Snow Play. Below 0 is a very good attack, and we do have plenty of chances to use it. We have 4 Roseanne, and we have our 3 Waters. But I think 4-3 is the split of energy. Unless you're deciding just to add more basic energy. If you want to go 4-4, and sure, go ahead. Honestly, I'd rather even go 5-3. The Psychic energies are way more important in the deck than the Water energies. You do need some Waters. You don't need a lot. And finally, 2 copies of Warp Energy in the deck. Warp Energy is a switching effect. It's also a colorless energy, so we get to attach it to our active Pokemon, and it switches that Pokemon to the bench. Now this is why we don't really need as many warp points in this deck, is because we have warp energy. So we can play comfortably 1 warp point to get us, like, you know, to move our Bronzong out, or something like move Abomasnow. This card's main function in this deck, though, is primarily we want to get that Cresselia level-X out. So either we're promoting the Cresselia level-X after like a knockout and attaching Warp Energy to move it, or we're attaching Warp Energy to Abomasnow and switching into Cresselia and then using like Unown Q to retreat it for free, or Moonlight Stadium to retreat it for free. You want 2 copies of Warp Energy in this deck. It is very good. Again, we have lots of colorless energy in our costs, so we don't really care about taking the hit to our energy consistency. We're just concerned about getting that switching effect so we can level up our Cresselias, or use Bronzong's ability and then switch it out to your Abomasnow for free if you don't yet have the Moonlight Stadium. Anyway, that's been the Abomasnow deck from 2008 Cities. A very fun deck. One of my favorite decks, I think, from this era, and I'm excited to talk about this era of the game in my upcoming video on the main channel. So just want to cover 1 or 2 decks from this format before I dive into it on the main channel. I don't want to cover Kingdra because Jay Hornung already covered Kingdra on his channel. So I'm going to talk about 1 more after this. I haven't decided yet what that is. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.